host. Please kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Iroghama Ogbeifun. I am Managing Director, CEO, Starzs Investments Company Limited.
All right. So, as the MD, sorry, as a woman managing this company, how do you operate efficiently with zero downtime and zero lost time injury operations?
So, as a woman and hopefully as an effective leader, I have understood the importance of working with a good team. So I recognize that I wouldn't record the kinds of successes that the business has recorded in the last 11 years of being in the system without the collaboration and, of course, the partnership with members of my team who play different roles, and they bring their own quota to helping us achieve that kind of record that you have just referenced. And also, I was mentored by a very great man who happens to be our founder and our chairman in the person of my Mr. Ogbeifun. And it is difficult to go through that level of mentorship and not record, good success in what you do. And generally, I also think that I deploy myself effectively. I have a posture of excellence, and I try to pass that on to my team as well. So whatever is worth doing is worth doing well. We have leveraged technology, we have leveraged competence, and we've leveraged good processes and systems within the organization to enable us achieve zero lost time injury, minimal downtime in a very sustainable way.
Okay. So you veered into the maritime space about 11 years back, and you've really been thriving as a female. What's the secret?
Into the maritime industry, I don't think that I set out 20 years ago, so I'll be 40 in a few months, and I don't think that when I was in public health, absolutely nothing in maritime or shipping or engineering. But I think that time and chance and fate and plan, God's plan maybe, brought me to the point 11 years ago where I had an opportunity to position as a potential successor for a family business such as ours. So I see it as a clarion call, that this is a legacy. This is a legacy situation, where a great man had put in the work for 30 years and required to situate a successor that would continue to guarantee that that legacy would outlive him and potentially his progeny would continue to benefit from the legacy. And I think that that is where I have come in. And it's not without its challenges. I would lie if I say that it has been an easy ride. It continues to be a difficult one even till today, and particularly as we are positioning the business to take our place in other markets. Recently set up a gas company, so there's now Starzs Gas. We've also recently branched out into Liberia, so we have Starzs Liberia to do marine operations there because we set our goals on being a Pan-African company within the next 5 years. And we are taking active steps to doing that. So of course the mantle of leadership continues to grow, and the expectations of success of course also grows with that mantle. Is there discrimination as a woman and as a young female? Because when I joined the company I was 29. And coming into that role, you have to prove yourself, even prove yourself in in the capacity that your male counterparts, maybe you just have to do 50% of the work or effort, and you have to do 100% all the time, to show that it's not a fluke, that the first time you succeeded wasn't by chance, right? And that is a result that you can sustain. So yes, but I think one thing that I prayed to God for from 2013 in other endeavors before joining Starzs was I learned that the wisdom of God is very instructive, and I found that it has come to play for me over the last 11 years, because there have been times when I needed that level of wisdom in my reactions, in my decision making, in my choices, and I think also being stubborn. I'm very stubborn. My dad would call it tenacity, and maybe that's a nicer way to put it. I'm very tenacious. I like to, when I set my mind on something, I do everything I can to try to, I have to be sure that it just couldn't be done. So telling me no off the cuff is not sufficient. I need to be satisfied that yes, truly, no is the best that I can get. And I feel that has helped me a whole lot in the last 11 years. And then exhibit rather my business acumen by the time I was joining Starzs. Now, how did I join Starzs? The chairman, our chairman then he was chairman CEO, was trying to procure a vessel, trying to acquire a vessel that was already working in country, but the owners at the time were going bankrupt and they were selling off their assets. So the risk that the business faced was that this vessel that was on charter going off to work for was already working for ExxonMobil, and if this owner had sold, it could have gone anywhere else in the world. So depending on who the new owners were. So the only way to secure that contract and was by buying that asset. So you get to raise funds. So he was currently in the money market trying to raise money through equity or mezzanine funding structure. And a fund took interest in the story. So the story was very nice. The story that the consultants then had put together was one of a man who was a professional, had bootstrapped himself, built this company, and now had this need. So this particular fund, which was a global impact fund, they took an interest through their equity investors, and they approached the company to say, okay, we're interested. But then when they began to do the due diligence, they realized that the chairman at the time was 63, and they were concerned there was a key man risk that was involved, and they needed to see what the succession plan was. So in case anything happens to this man, because already at that age there's already some kind of risk factor. If anything happens to him, then there's a situation of jeopardy of the fund, the money that has been invested, because then nobody knows what happens to the business afterwards. So there was this conversation around what's succession plan. So I think in that early 2014, the consultants were tasked with the responsibility of identifying the successor. It didn't have to be family, and I think for them they were headhunting. Just put the structure in place that shows us the corporate governance, shows us how, regardless of this individual, the business sustains. And I just had a chance meeting with the consultants during one of their visits. They were British. It was a British consulting firm, and they happened to be in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt, and I had the opportunity to interact with them for just a few minutes. And apparently, obviously, this came out after the fact. After I left, they said to my chairman that that's your successor. At this time, I was fully involved with the security company, and I was also building my business, which was the business that I used to win the next item. And so my chairman at the time was very skeptical, like, oh, just like anybody else. She's not even that I was a woman, but just that he hadn't prepared me for that. It never occurred to him that I would take that responsibility. I have two brothers, both marine engineers, both whose trajectory he had been personally involved in shaping, because he had envisaged that these would be his successor. So for him, I was never in the play as a potential successor. He had never thought about it, never imagined it, never considered it. So he pushed back against it and said, no, I don't think so. She's, no. Basically shut it down. And, they continued to look for who would be, because none of my brothers were ready at the time to step in, unfortunately. So they were looking for this third party, and then another chance opportunity. And I guess this is where maybe fate and maybe God's plan, and just God was just like, this is where you're going to be. I just happened to accompany my chairman for a meeting he had in London with these funders, and I was just going along for the ride because I really wanted to go shopping, and first business class ticket to London, and going with my father. I was like, hey, yay, we're gonna go and I'm gonna have fun. But I forgot that, knowing the kind of man that he was, he wouldn't pay your way all the way just for you to go and have fun while he's working. So you work, and after the work, we'll have fun, And so he insisted that I join him for the just brainstorming session to prepare for the meeting the next day. So I joined them, and while I was on the plane with him, he had shared the term sheets with me. I mean, this is me. I was just out of curiosity, not really because I envisaged anything would come out of it. So I just read the term sheet, and I guess brought a different perspective or lens to the transaction that they had been so engrossed in it that maybe they had missed a few things. And so whilst they were having their brainstorm session, I was contributing, and after a while the consultant said to him, are you sure she's not going to follow us for this meeting tomorrow, because she's obviously adding value? And I guess those are lessons to say, when you're opportune to be in the room, speak up. Because I could have been in that room, be pressing my phone, distracted, and then I'd just be there but not adding any value, or showing that I could add value. And so I went for that meeting with them, but to the condition that I would be quiet and just observe and learn. It was a learning opportunity. And my dad said to me, this is a privilege to be in such a room. You learn, listen, and all of that, which was great. And I said, I promise I will be quiet. And then during the meeting, as the meeting was going on, I noticed that there seemed to be a fundamental aspect of the conversation that was missing. And so I wrote him a note. I said, can I ask a question? Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what went through his mind. And he finally said, okay, fine, but I'm sure you're just thinking, oh my God, don't go and say nonsense, And so I raised my hand and I asked this question, a very simple question, but apparently it was a point that had generally been overlooked by both parties, and it was such a fundamental point. And when I said it, like, oh my goodness, it required everybody to go back and, sort of back to the drawing table, look at a few things and, engage. So after the session, it was a good meeting, very positive. As we were leaving, the then senior partner of the firm, as we were leaving, shaking hands, as he got to my dad, I was right behind my dad, he said to my dad, oh, we look forward to working with her in the management team. Because he just assumed that for the fact that I wasn't sitting there, maybe that was the plan. But meanwhile, if only they had known that it was a case of serendipity, right? I just happened to be there. And so I think that my performance on that trip gave my chairman a different perspective of who I was, that maybe I was truly ready, maybe I was truly a good candidate. And I think after there was so much excitement, he said, you know what, maybe you are ready, let's bring you in, and the rest they say is history, and that was it.
Gender blind. So as a maritime expert dominating men's domain, what can you say about the maritime space?
I think that the maritime space has a lot of potential. There's a lot of opportunity. Nigeria continues to position herself as a real maritime hub for the African continent, and I feel that we haven't even taken that place fully. We haven't shown our fullest potential in that regard, and the private sector has proven time and time again to be ready, but the truth that there needs to be synergy between the private sector and the public sector. And what do I mean by that? You have to create, the responsibility of government is to create the enabling environment that drives the success of private sector, and you do that through various means, through funding instruments, through fiscal policies that are favorable, through an enabling environment that removes bureaucracy in terms of applying for permits, and governance and things like that. Security of your assets, security of your employees, security of your business, there. And of course, not driving away foreign partners and foreign investors who come in and add and increase the opportunities that exist for your business to expand and grow, because it's an ecosystem. There's no business that is in isolation. The business is playing a role within a broader ecosystem. So today, what we have is a situation where government is trying. I give credit, and I like the fact that one of the major developments within the industry that I was very happy about was the creation of the Marine and Blue Economy ministry, because then for once we now have a ministry that is dedicated to the maritime industry, which means that the federal government recognized the contribution of the maritime and shipping industry to the overall economy of Nigeria, hence granting her a desire to have a dedicated ministry. However, the ministry needs to begin to move, beyond the talk of it, of the things that need to be done, and begin to let's begin to see some actual emergence of some of these initiatives. So for example, the CVFF, the disbursement of the CVFF fund. This is a conversation that's been ongoing for more than 2 decades. The Cabotage Act was enacted in 2003, and 22 years later, we're still on the full implementation of the Cabotage Act. By now, we should be building ships that are classed. By now, we should have world-class shipyards, ship repair, shipbuilding yards that exist around the country that continue to position us as that maritime hub. By now, our ship registry should be one of envy around the world, not ranking the way she's ranking today. By now, we should have Nigerian-owned vessels flying the Nigerian flag around the world. We should see internationally seagoing vessels that belong to Nigerians, whether carrying the country's cargo in terms of crude, whether importing the country's finished goods that they're using or exporting it, whether carrying even bulk cargo out of Nigeria to other parts of the world, not just even within the African continent. And we saw that after creating an opportunity, a very unique opportunity for the maritime industry to actually pick up and begin to dominate.
Who have the opportunity to go into the maritime but they feel so reluctant because of those challenges.
So there's a purpose for why the association was created. I am privileged to be at the helm of affairs of a company that is a foremost company in the industry, and I don't think that conversations about our industry should be taking place and a company like ours will not have a seat at the table. So that responsibility was already placed on me. Like I said, whether I was female or male, I expect that whoever was running our business should plan to be at the decision making table. So our organization SWAN is more of an advocacy body. It's a body that wants to promote the technical competence, the business activities of its members. It's one that advocates for government policies that impacts the business activities of its members. So being in a position that enables me enter rooms where I can talk to lawmakers or influence policy that could potentially also affect my business and the industry at large was critical, was important, and so I decided to throw my hat in the ring, and I believe that I was qualified to be considered for the role. Today I'm the chairman technical committee, very passionate about the maritime industry because that's an industry that I've been in for 11 years, and I see what it has done for young people. Because most of the trained cadets every 2 years, we have a very robust cadetship program in Starzs, and we have the opportunity to train 14 cadets every 2 years. They go through our program and train them when they come out of Maritime Academy or any of the institutions, and then they go through our on board program, training program. And so when I see them, both men and women, just last year we were able to emerge our first female chief engineer who came into our organization as a cadet and grew from cadetship to the highest rank in her profession as chief engineer before she disembarked and took a job as a surveyor. So for me, that gives me a reason to want to sit on in a position in an association where I can champion the rights of the women, making sure that the industries are aware that they are competent women sector, any industry or sector is devoid of the challenges. The challenges are not, some of them are peculiar to the industry, but most of them are not. Especially a general working environment, especially in this part of the world. And so I'll say to them, I think first of all you have to understand your purpose. It's not about jumping into the maritime industry or any industry. It's about what am I going to do in the maritime industry. And even if you find yourself in that industry or whatever industry, you have to, if you have a personal sense of purpose, you would recognize the role you are to play in that space that you have found yourself. I think also join women groups. There are quite a number of them. There's WISTA, Women in Shipping and Transport Association. There's WILAT, there's WIMA, there's WIMOCA. There are quite a number within the industry. There you get to learn about the industry. You get to see other women. There are quite a number of women who are doing different things in different aspects of the industry. So you don't feel alone. You also get to empower yourself with knowledge and insights as to opportunities that are available. And you can also spot one or two mentors, even if they're not mentoring you one-on-one, but at least they can mentor you from afar, because then you begin to follow their career and their journey and read their articles or watch their interviews and learn a bit more. So I'd say, you have to know yourself first. And if you find yourself in that space, be excellent. I would say to women, unfortunately, the pressure, the expectations are higher. It shouldn't be that way, but it is what it is, and we accept it. So I teach my children already. I have 2 girls. You have to be excellent. You bring your best self, to that space. You bring your best self. So are you bringing your best self? And then don't assume that because you are a woman, don't have that sense of entitlement. I think that should be stripped away. You should be there because you merit it. You should be there because you deserve it, and you're qualified, eminently qualified. And even if people want to make you the what they call it, the inclusion percentage, like, okay, we need 35% affirmative action. So because of that, let it be that they put a competent and qualified woman, not because she's a woman. And I think if we all bring our best selves, so they shouldn't be afraid, because they're going to face the challenges anyway. But just have a sense of purpose, have an understanding, don't be ignorant, be excellent, bring your best self to play, and you will thrive. I think government can play a role with sensitization, to creating more awareness, and it starts primarily not even just from when you're already a career person from the universities, from government can pass laws that protect women. So first of all, their laws that actually intentionally protect women's rights. The women have a voice. I mean, we're seeing all that's been happening in the last few days. Lots of uproar from the Keja Electric situation, CEO situation, to what's happening in the Senate and all of that. So are there laws that actually protect the rights of women within these industries? Number one. Number two, are women sensitized and aware of what their rights are, and that yes, truly they can be, since they can be protected. Are the organizations also aware of their responsibilities to the women who work within their environments? And then women, just the same way, I don't see any reason why women cannot form pressure groups. Work in an industry, form a pressure group, and that pressure group's role is to advocate for the rights of women that work within that environment. And especially if there are discrepancies in pay, maybe there's no balance, men are earning more, or men are being given more opportunities. So if you have a good pressure group that is recognized within that industry, they should be able to advocate for such things, to be against the law, and change such narratives. And then I also always implore human capacity. I can't go away from human capacity because, if you're not competent, I'm a businesswoman, I'm a business owner. I don't look at the gender. I look at the capacity, right? And honestly, and that's how every business should operate. I think it's unfair to insist that a business must employ a woman, or because she's a woman, even if she's not competent. So we as women have the responsibility to grow our competence. Let it be when they say, where are the competent women? We can flood you with them. And so that removes the excuse of, oh, there are no competent women, and how do we grow the crop? They're not going to just grow themselves, right? So where government can come in, there should be HCD programs, working in partnership with established companies within the sector who can, like NCDMB does. The NCDMB prioritizes HCD, human capacity development. They insist that the Shells, the Totals, the ExxonMobils of this world, they all have to have a budget. Even my company, if you're participating within the industry, you must show us your human capacity development plan, training plan, and your budget for it, because they recognize that that is the only way that the industry will be sustained.
Alright, we had a very expository interview with the MD of Starzs Investment Company Limited, Miss Iroghama Ogbeifun. It was nice speaking with her, so please do not go anywhere. Watch and learn. Thank you.